Good afternoon, and we're back with season 2, episode 3 of Younger versus Young again. We are 100 Years Enterprise. My name is Fahim, aka Lejon, and to my right, who do I have?
Dante, aka Raheem.
To your left, you have Patrick, aka Hamilton.
And again, we are 100 Years Enterprise. For this third episode, I chose this topic of getting back to reading books. And the importance for me to getting back to reading books, it goes back thousands of years. It goes down in the thousands of years I'm going back to is before we came to this country, before we were stripped from the motherland. Some people might call it the land of Sudan, land of the blacks, Africa, or whatever we may call it. But during that time, education was so important. It was so important because those who were stripped of their education, who were told they couldn't read, it became, I would say it became an issue. And the issue was that it started breaking up families. It started breaking up powerful and strong traditions of what it was to have a strong family and the importance of how one could not allow themselves to be taken from a place where they were used to and comfortable and stripped of all their rights and understanding who they were and carried across a big ocean, a big sea of water to a foreign land and told you are now someone else, right? And so in this day and age, what we see is that reading, knowledge, history has become instinct, per se. Almost really instinct to us. You don't really hear about us as a race, as a creed, as a culture, who say, hey, let's grab our kids and continue the education process. And we're going to go further into it, but I really wanted to just open up on those points right there.
You want to jump in on that, Dante?
Yeah, I will. Because read is important. And this is a really brilliant and beautiful topic. Especially it runs deep for me. Because I was a kid that couldn't read. So in my mind, I felt, why should I need to read? How could reading help me? This was in my thinking though, right? So being that I couldn't read, it was okay to me that I couldn't read. And then on top of that, when you're in a situation, who do you tell that you can't read? So now here comes the ridicule, here comes the shame, here comes the embarrassment, right? But it took me a long time to figure it out. It took me to commit a crime, go to prison, and then it hit me. If I'm gonna go to prison for a long time, I need to figure out how to read. I need to figure out how to write letters. I need to figure out how to comprehend to the letters that I'm gonna receive from people. So it's very important. And those that's out here, those that's looking at this podcast, if you don't know how to read, ask somebody, tell somebody. Don't be ashamed. Because what I found out, reading is powerful. Knowledge is powerful, but you have to understand the knowledge. You have to understand the words that you see in these books. So don't be afraid to pick up a book like I was. And I really honestly believe if I would have learned how to read and understand, my life probably would have been a little bit better. I probably wouldn't have went to prison. It's a possibility. So reading is very, very important. Very important.
Yeah, it's good that you touched on that note because just by me thinking about reading, right? In my case, right, using myself for example, is that I went through many years trying to understand the law and how to compartmentalize how to put a writ and transcripts together to get my issues heard in front of a court system, right? That's set up for us to fail, right? And you have to be able to read and articulate. You have to be able to read and articulate the law, right, as it was brought about.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what Fahim was saying. In order to understand history, you have to read and understand, be able to dissect what that time was compared to where we are today, right? And so when you understand reading, right, when you read books, it's not just to read a story, it's to expand your intellect, right, and then apply it. So the more knowledge you acquire, it's better for you to apply it for someone else, as yourself and someone else. So in my case, you know, this subject right here, the thing that points out to me the most is when I was in that situation. Mm-hmm. And I filed 13 writs. 13, if everybody don't know about that, well, you know, writs that you use in court systems to get your issues heard when you feel that justice wasn't applied to you in your situation. Right, yeah. I'll leave it at that point. And so there's a method to get certain issues addressed through a reading process, interpreting the law. And so I had to go through that, and I failed many times because I had allowed my emotions to get past what I'm reading. I'm looking at what was done to me instead of understanding how the law interpret what I've done. Right. And so that's the power in reading is so, you know, magnetic that, you know, yeah, reading sets the tone for everything in my perspective.
Yeah. I agree. You know, when we talk about, you know, knowledge and the value of knowledge and education, and, you know, get back to this reading. Our ancestors, especially the women, they taught and held classes on education, grabbing the kids, you know, to read, and they were beaten when you try to educate. You know, we were literally beaten. So when we get to this day and time in the 21st century, when you talk about writs of habeas corpus, right? When you talk about these writs, when you're dealing with law, and then we going through the addictive street life. We have this money. We pay for lawyers, right? We pay for lawyers to do what? Basically to read for us. Yeah. So we pay somebody to read for you, to articulate a certain thing for you in the law, what can either be for you or against you. So you could be paying for a thing, right? And they could be telling you everything what you doing, what you paying for, we doing to help you, but you haven't even opened up the pages to see what you paying for. And they could be telling you anything. And that's the same thing when we dealing with now. Let's take it to where we are today in 2022. When we dealing with business, when we dealing with business, when we dealing with podcasts, when you dealing with the structure of a business, and this is for the youth, this is for the adults. When you're trying to get in business, it looks easy, but it's not. You have to read and understand what it takes to build, to create, and to structure, to build an infrastructure in a business. If we didn't do that, if we didn't spend the hours it took losing the sleep to learn what we are today, to be who we are today, it wouldn't even be a 100 years enterprise. Because we had to read and educate ourselves about who we are to get here today.
So you saying basically, are you saying, you know, this is for the audience, right?
Yes.
Are you posing the question that you reading and understanding business, right? On the topic of reading books.
Yes.
Right? That you have to read books in business so you can be able to interpret what your business entails.
If you're a boss, because you can't be a boss and say, I have a business and not understanding what the business entails. The deep intricacies of the business.
And how you do that?
You can't. You have to be present. You have to lose sleep. You have to be committed. You have to be dedicated. And you have to go and you have to be understanding and have a sense of keen awareness, understanding of what you're trying to get to so you can give it to the people. That's how you do it. You have to be able to understand and become aware and serve it for the people. Because we just can't take the book or take the knowledge and keep it. Because acquired knowledge has to be done. What do we have to do with acquired knowledge?
How to pass it on.
We have to pass it on, right? But we have to be selfish in how we pass it on too. We don't just get it to pass it on just to be doing it. We have to pass it on to those who we know who's going to value the information and do the same thing with it that we're doing with it.
Most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, you're right about that. But like I say, reading, it opens up a door for everything. And one thing that I've learned, I can't. One of the brothers that I was locked up, he might have been an OG. He had told me, he say, words are powerful. So choose your words very carefully. Choose
Absolutely.
your words wisely, because words are powerful. But it took me a long time to understand that, because today I still hate reading, but I do read. And things that I read, I mean, like I said, it opened my eyes. Even in prison, just understanding myself just by cracking open certain books. Be like, wow, understanding certain words, understanding remorse, understanding pain, understanding sorry. See, all these words meant something. But being that I couldn't read, guess what? They didn't mean nothing to me when I
So,
was out there making early death decisions out there on the streets.
for the kids and the youth who are listening today, how do we encourage them who are still reading books, who are in school, in grade school, in high school, and going to college? How do we encourage them to stay on that path of reading and education, since it is so powerful? How do we do that?
The first thing we do, I believe, right, this is my opinion, is to get them to identify who they truly are
Mm-hmm.
first,
Exactly.
right? Because no one can shepherdize or lead themselves only but themselves. You can get guidance from all kinds of people, but you must be the vehicle that leads. You must be the vehicle that moves forward. So my thing is to get their attention, right? Connect with them, right? And then give them the importance of what they want to do. This is the steps of what you do, because you can't do it whatever you want to be. You want to be an athlete, you got to learn how to read the playbook to understand what play to run.
Exactly.
So reading is in there. You can't be an educator. You can't. What I'm saying, you can't cheat your way all the way through, because the higher you go, the thinner the air is,
Absolutely.
and you're gonna go into sharks. So if you jump in a pool of sharks, if you're not a shark, don't jump in the pool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the point is that practice, get them to identify who you are. Then once you identify who you are, then perfect who you are by educating yourself, by learning the lessons that it takes through reading,
Yeah.
right, to incorporate what you're trying to be, what you say you are. Because no one can hold you accountable better than yourself.
You can.
Definitely.
And as we build, just say us three, as we build this enterprise where we on this ship, and how we trying to take it to the apex, how we trying to go with this thing, right? Every day, we have to constantly read and understand contracts. We have to read and understand constant emails. We have to be on point with those emails, right? We have to be on point with teachers, principals, corporations, companies who might just reach out to us for something they might need us to do, and maybe not. But when it's coming, we have to always be on point and be able to understand what's coming through those emails, what's coming through those text messages, so we can say, okay, we have to be on point for this. We have to make sure we are going to make this happen, because if it don't, it can cost you your business. If you're not reading the right words and understand it, it can cost you your business, right? It can be taken from you. For instance, you're a nonprofit organization, you have board members, and if you're not handling your business correctly, if you don't understand it inside your bylaws, right, they can vote you to whereas, and have you in a position to whereas you at the bottom of the totem pole and say, why everybody making these decisions? Well, because you ain't read what was going on, you ain't been present. So this goes on, to tie everything back in from thousands of years ago to now. Knowledge, understanding, be able to articulate it, pass it on, is very important then, and more important so now, because we see how these kids, our youth, our people, are making these early death decisions. Because how you gonna be able to interrupt the cycle of violence if you don't even understand the laws or really understand the violence you are committing? These laws are constantly being passed. You're not even taking the time even to read a billboard, our proposition, what's coming through legislature or through Congress, and as Patrick said, be able to even shepherdize the law.
You want to get a? I got something to say.
I just want to
Go ahead, I'm
I
glad
just want
you-
to say, I just want to say this. I will pass it over to you. I was always told, read and understand what you're signing.
Yeah.
Read first before you sign anything. But in you reading that, make sure you understand
Yeah.
what it is on that document before you sign it. Because it might be saying something that, like you said, will strip you from your whole business. And you
Everything.
done signed it away.
Yeah.
So that's very important. Go ahead, brother.
I got 2 points on this, right? Because this is huge, right? Everything in this world can be put in the book.
Yeah.
Everything.
Okay, let's just say that everything in this world can be put in the book. I mean, you can read about everything in this world.
Yeah.
Everything. It's a blessing. It's a lesson and a blessing, right? So, number one is for us as Muslims, as practicing Muslims, Allah say what? He that knows his Lord knows himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can't practice your Lord if you don't know yourself, right? 2, right? They say commonly amongst men and women, if you know better, you do better,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that is another form of saying, you know what I mean? Read to understand. Read to understand. It expands your intellect, right? You can't teach, lead, be a mentor, guide, you know what I mean, without understanding what it is that you're leading.
Right.
So is that practical?
Absolutely.
So you know, understanding all these cues, understanding that reading helps you advance what you need to do in this world, and it helps you, you know what I mean, going back to you know better, you do better, you know, steering yourself away from early death decisions, right, and breaking the cycle of violence is understanding what you're doing when you're doing it. So all that's the key.
Right. That goes back to many of our great educators, right? Many of our great educators, they stood in front, right, of the people. They taught what they knew from those who came before them, right? So they learned something, acquired some knowledge and education, and was able to pass it on. And they was being docked for it. I mean, they was beaten for it, right? But that fear was put in them, did not stop them, right, from saving the people, right? So in this day and age, it's still a fear factor to teach, to educate based on this thing. Oh, you soft. Oh, why y'all doing that? Oh, they castaways. Don't worry about them. Why are you trying to save them kids? But who are you to say that, right? So we said the system was in place, was designed to do what? It's not designed to interrupt the cycle of violence. It's designed for the people to fail, for those who are not, right, seeking right guidance through the education. That's why you have Silicon Valley. You have the inner city. That's why you had powder cocaine, which was, hey, you can do that, to crack cocaine. What the hell y'all doing? You forget 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Because the education, the reading, and the understanding.
That's why, you know, as men, as 100 years enterprise, that's why we do what we do. Is to educate the peoples and also let them know about our history, because our history is lost. Like the brother said, our history is lost. We don't even talk about, you know, what happened in slavery, and we need to get back to that.
What happened?
Really, so the kids can understand. This is where I come from. This is how our ancestors struggled and went through it and got, you know, beat for this and this and that, right? So once we deliver that to these youngsters to get them a better understanding of who we are as a people.
Right. And on the flip side, to let them know how strong they are.
Exactly.
Right? How strong they are, how powerful they are. You know what I mean? Even from if you came from Europe, if you came from North America, if you came from South America, every nation had a strong and powerful, right?
Yeah.
Tradition
Yeah.
of what they went through. So everybody had it. And it's key for everybody, nation, creed, race, religion, to really understand where they come from, their history. Because if you can understand your past, you understand what?
Your future.
Your future. You'll understand today.
And just to add to that, what he was saying, one of our great scholars, Frederick Douglass, right? The biggest thing about the highlight of his life was the ability to read.
Yeah.
He started reading the Bible, and so when he read the Bible, he was beaten. Slave owner was beaten,
Mm-hmm.
beating him to keep him away from reading. But the more he read, the more rebellious he became. Because why? His intellect expanded, and he started aligning himself with God-given laws.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's a corporate law. I forgot, it's the common law. It's God-given laws. This nation is built on common law. And so the common laws for every human being, every man and woman to follow. They inherit right.
Right.
And so you understand those things. When you understand the common law of everything, right? And you come to read and understand that, then you understand that you're somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And no other man can take that away from if I'm following the common law of land.
Exactly.
Right? And that comes from intellect. And so that's the balance of life that one has to have in the ability to read. And that will help you steer yourself away from making early death decisions, as well as breaking the cycle of violence in our case. Because 100 years, this came from what? Reading. We couldn't say 100.
Right.
Because that's 1,000. It's 1,000 companies that got 100 years.
Right.
MGM got 100 years. You know what I mean? Paramount got 100 years. 100 years of doing business. Right. You can't own that. But we own this because we read and we come to understand in business terms how important this is and a name. This is our brand.
Absolutely.
From reading. So those are examples.
You know, and it goes back to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. You know, education. In order for him to grab the people, they had to read. You know, he was a what you call an unlettered prophet. He was ignorant. He didn't know how to read, so he had to be taught. He had to have people around him to help him, right? But what made him so powerful is that he was a walking example. So if he couldn't read, but his day-to-day actions, the way he woke up, the way he carried out his day, and the way he went to sleep, all was in a form of giving, right? Servitude, conduct, right? His fearful awareness of God, but also to educate the people, because he knew in order to educate the people, he could unite the people, right? And when other scholars, Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, right? He did the same thing, taught education. Because if you don't have the education, the proper knowledge, you won't be able to know yourself so you can know your Lord. In order to know yourself, to know your Lord, that's how you're going to be able to bow down these 5 times a day, what we do, and pray. We had to learn English to get to Arabic, right? To say Alhamdulillah, to say Bismillah, right? To just break those things down in the name of Allah and praise be to God, and praise be to Allah. And it's deep in education. It's something we have to practice daily, every day, to give it to these kids so they won't go astray, so they won't go left. We have to tell them why it's important to keep it, why it's important. Because if not, it's easy to misread a sign, a direction, what's going to lead you behind those walls of incarceration, what can cost you 25 or 30 years. You ain't going to know why until you done 15 years.
Ikra.
Ikra.
That's an Arabic word, which means read. And everything that's being discussed right now about reading, I went through it. Prime example. I'm a prime example. I went through it because I didn't know how to read. And then once I've learned, it opened up a major door for me. One, discovered who I was. By reading. So that's the beauty in reading, but understanding what you read. That's right. Because some of the things I read, I couldn't understand. I had to read it over and over until I digested, till I was able to understand it. So that's why it's very important for us to learn how to read. And then read the right stuff. Now you don't want to read, the wrong stuff. Even though we all probably read Donald Goines and,
I read every Donald Goines in the Kennedy, all
that. The only thing we were doing was just reliving our life by reading these books.
But what I can say about those books, when I was in the county jail, it took my mind somewhere else, and I was learning new words in those books.
Yeah.
So it did expand my knowledge going in another direction. I might want to be a little more slicker. I look for everything else we carried in those books until I started reading books on history, on books on self-discovery, self-mastery, and started reading books about self-education. Yeah.
And man, how powerful reading is, right? Is because as y'all was talking, I was thinking about the Malcolm X story. And how he was in the same situation you was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't read. But, once he got because reading changed your life, He went to the United Nations, right? He was in his room all day breaking down the dictionary. He broke down the whole dictionary. Because words have power and meaning. And if you learn how to interpret those words, right, you can guide a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a powerful statement you made. You know what I mean? And Ikra, read.
Another thing about knowledge reading, it gives you so much confidence.
Yes, that it does.
It gives you confidence, right? It helps create that stability in your life, that maturity, to where you walk with this good pride that, man, I remember I was like that, but never no more. But now I can use this to help people, right? Not to look down on anyone with that false hope, false pride, with the egos and all of those type of things. What come with the not knowing.
Yeah.
See, it comes with the not knowing. But once you know and understand,
Do better.
you will do better. Say, yeah, I was there, but now I'm here, right? We was in a place of doom and gloom, right? Behind those walls. But now we surrounded by all these lights right now. That's lights, camera, action, right? And people will envy us for being, I gotta say it, for having lights, camera, action, for doing the right thing. We are 100 Years Enterprise. My name is Fahim.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Dante. Read a book.
The importance of education. Please follow us on YouTube, 100 Years Enterprise. Please go to our website, 100years.biz. Please follow us on Instagram, 100 Years DOP. And just because you hear us on episode 3, it's going to be episode 4, 5. We're going up to 1,000. We ain't trying to stop with Green Media with our production. With Jonathan, with Christina and their staff, we have to continue to thank them for supporting us, for being behind us, and for Co-Biz, for Wesley. You got to get that shout out.
Almost definitely.
For being behind us also. And we're going to continue to push to serve our community. Y'all want to add something to that before we go?
You said it all, big time. You said it all. All I'm going to say is this, I add this. Hey, we got hats and t-shirts as well, man. Get your hat and t-shirt. Hoodies are coming soon, as well as sweats. You know what I mean? This right here, we have to understand business to even produce these hats and shirts. So read. Make sure you read all the time.
100 years. Doc Biz, tune in at our website.
And be excellent at what you do, y'all. Be excellent.